Okay, let's talk about what we're going to do with all of these images here. Number one, I've got a series of them of you guys jumping. They're each at different shutter speeds. I want to point out to you that if you look over here, each time I click on a different picture, we've got something called metadata here, this tab that's lit up here. So each time I click on a picture, it tells me what f-stop, what shutter speed, and what ISO I shot at. Okay. So what I would like you to do, if we look inside at the assignment, TV mode, shutter speed, and panning. We want you to upload 3 photos. Upload 3 of the best shots you took on the first day. Each one must fit this criteria. Each one needs to be a different shutter speed. Well, that's easy to see. Here's shutter speed. This is 1/125th of a second. As I click down here, this one's a little darker, so that's 1/500th of a second. Here's one 1,000th. Some of the really darkest ones are 2,000th of a second. So I can find lots of them that are different shutter speeds. But they need to be renamed with that metadata on them that tells the f-stop and the shutter speed. And then you're going to upload one of the best panning images that you took and name it by its metadata in here. So, and then answer some questions. And all of these are questions based on the observations that you make about those photos. So let's look at the first one, for example. And you could probably even answer these questions before you rename the images. Look very carefully at the action shots of movement, not the panning images, the non-panning ones. At what shutter speed or speeds did you notice that there was a blur because of the movement in the pictures? So you're going to look at those questions and then go back and start looking at them. So, you know, here's one, 125th. Here's a good one at 125th of a shutter speed. So 125th of a second. So if I want to look at it really close, I'm going to go in to edit it. And sure enough, there's, especially if we look at things like hands or, you know, especially if you were jumping, things that might move fast in a photo. So hands and hair are going to move a little bit faster than your feet coming up off the ground. So we're going to look for blur in those types of images. So I can conclude from that that at 125th of a second, I'm still getting blur on these images. So that's probably not the greatest shutter speed to shoot at if I want to completely freeze movement. Okay. So you're just going to sort of go back and forth and read the questions and answer them. Please, if you're going to type, grab a blue and type your answers in there. But let's look at this then. How do you rename these things? And if you notice, they're JPEGs. So I didn't go into Photoshop. They're not Photoshop documents. No part of this lesson involves Photoshop. To make these have different names on them like this is super easy. So let's see, how do we do that? So let's start with this image. I'm going to go back into Camera Raw. And if I want to do some editing to it, I can. I don't need to. This picture is properly exposed the way that it is. I recognize the fact that there is some blur on it, but because I have to submit 3 different shutter speeds, I know this is at 1/125th of a second, so I'm going to use this as one of my own. So basically, I just open this up. I click Save Image. This was the name that was in there from the last photo. Under File Naming, number 1, Destination, I want to make sure that it saves to the same location. In your case, that's going to be the folder that you created on your computer, which probably is called Jump or Leap or something like that. Under File Naming, that's where you're going to put your new file name, and I want you to name it. If you look back in Safari, I want the name to be the shutter speed, the aperture number, and the ISO of that image. So I'm going to go back here. I'm going to wipe out the last thing. And to find that information, all I need to do, the picture's already open here, and the information is right underneath of the metadata. I'm sorry, right underneath of the histogram. So I'm just going to name it. Now watch what I do. F5, comma. The next is shutter speed, 1/125. So 1/125th of a second, comma, and then the ISO I'm going to put in there is 1250. So this is what you're going to name it. Now I want you to notice the difference here. It doesn't pick up backslashes like this for like 125th of a second. It's going to put an underscore under that, which is perfectly fine. I don't mind. I know exactly what it means. So it's at f5, 125th of a second, ISO 1250. And then I'm going to click save. All right, and done. And you will notice that there it is, the rename picture. So it keeps the original, but it makes a new one the same way. So I'm going to do a couple of these, and you can just watch so you get the hang of it. I need to pick 3 different shutter speeds. So here's at 1/500th of a second. Maybe, you know, look at some fun ones. That's a fun one. Adobe Raw. Make your observations about the pictures. There's a lot less blur in this. Maybe I boost the exposure a little. And save. There it is. This one's at 1/2000th of a second. Something I'd like you to recognize here. Number one, this is the original exposure. So you can see that it is significantly darker at 1/2000th of a second. And the ISO is 3200. Check out the quality of these images, especially up in this area. See all this dust that's up in there? And these little flecks everywhere? That's what happens when your ISO climbs. And it gets pretty high like this. 6400, which is the highest your cameras will go to, is of really, really low quality. Oops. And there I have my 3 different images, which I would upload. Then all I need to do is find a really nice shot that I liked of running. This one's a little bright. Okay, so there it is. There the 4R. It took me, even while I was teaching you, it took me maybe, I don't know, 6 minutes to do. Then I go in and answer my questions. Upload my pictures and turn it in.